Celtics really shorthanded in Toronto, but they find a way to win. I think it's a perfect use of their depth. I'll explain it right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Yup. Be down, be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Back to back, if I say it, it's stamped. Locked on number 19, the best one, the next one. Juice loose in your pool now for the next run. It's the C's, who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT, Karalis, recap the madness. Every game, every practice. Best daily pod, no cap like Brad Beckett. Clutch like Jrue to KP, tap in daily. Primetime dapping D White on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. I got you every Monday through Friday. Bonus podcasts on the weekend, like this Friday night when they play the Cavs. That should be a fun one. I've got it all for you. When you subscribe, it gets dropped directly to your favorite podcasting app. It's also on YouTube. Get in there, watch the show, comment on the show, let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the show, I am John Karalis. I have been covering the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal for the past few years as a beat writer, covering the Celtics overall for about 20 years now. So it's a long time covering this team. I know them pretty much inside and out. And I think this win over Toronto is a good win, a really quality win. Not the prettiest win, not the greatest win in the world, but it's still a really good win. Later on, we'll talk about individual performances. But let's just listen. In a game like this, you got to find a way. So we knew coming in that they were going to give Jrue Holiday some rest. There were some question marks there. Ultimately, Luke Cornett out, Al Horford out, Holiday out, Porzingis late scratch. After the game, Joe Mazzulla said that they held Porzingis out to kind of guarantee that he would be available against Detroit. So I don't know what it was. They called it an illness. It's another last-second illness for Porzingis. Regardless, it didn't seem like it's anything that was an issue, and I would expect him to play against Detroit. So that's four guys, four of their top 9 guys, 3 of them centers, 2 of them starters, that made this a very difficult game. Celtics built up a big lead, ended up losing it in the second quarter. That second quarter was a super, super frantic. That was a Toronto style of play. And I don't think it was a surprise that the Jaylen Brown led lineups kind of fell into that trap, because Jaylen likes to play fast. This isn't like the second quarter changed when Jayson Tatum came back in. And I think some people might take that as, oh, well, Jayson Tatum is the superstar. And, of course things got better when he came in. That's not where I'm going with that necessarily. Jayson plays slow. Jayson is a slower player. And against this particular team, they needed to play a little bit slower just to not fall into Toronto's frantic helter-skelter trap. Jaylen likes to play fast. He wants to get up and down. He wants to play in that kind of just attack, miss, run back, whatever, run back. He wants a track meet. And I think Toronto really, really wants a track meet, and they understand that that's one of the best ways to beat Boston. The Celtics were missing shots. And you remember in yesterday's show, I was talking about the Knicks, the defense against the Knicks. One of the ways to combat the Celtics defense where they're matching up, and this wasn't exactly the game where they would match up anyway, because they were so shorthanded. They didn't have the same advantages, but still one of the ways to combat the Celtics defense is to play fast and get them cross-matched. If the Celtics aren't hitting shots, that plays into them not being able to play good defense, and not just because they miss shots, they hang their heads and they're not playing hard. The Celtics played hard for basically this entire game. But that second quarter, it got frantic. The Celtics were missing shots. Toronto, it was very kind of out of control. Tatum came back in, took back control because he plays the pace that is the antidote for what Toronto was trying to do. Jaylen actually played a really good game, which I'll get to later on. So I don't want to make it. I feel like I have to over-explain this because people will only hear what they want to hear. The Celtics, after that second quarter stretch where Toronto led for 10 seconds of this game, 10 seconds of this game. So the Celtics led for 47 minutes and 50 seconds. Toronto led for 10. Once they took back control, they had it, but they could never really shake Toronto. Toronto was playing hard. That second half was a lot of tough defense. I think the teams that they didn't start either team didn't start a big man. The Celtics started Tory Craig, which I'll get to that in a second. They took the first half to like feel each other out and figure out how to defend. So the second half was just I think a better defensive effort from both teams, a tougher defensive effort on the perimeter by the Raptors. The Celtics got a little sloppy and they just had to figure out a way to get through it. And they did. And that's what makes this a really good win. The Tory Craig minutes were not great. Starting with Tory Craig was not, I don't think it was a tactic that necessarily worked, but I also think I don't disagree with starting Tory Craig. I like that they did it. I like that they got 14 and a half minutes of game film of him with Jayson Tatum at center. Jayson Tatum jumped center, which I don't think he's ever done in his life. So I look back at those Tory Craig minutes as positives, even though it didn't look great. And you might say, well, no, John, that didn't go well, so he shouldn't have done it. And my response is, how do you know you shouldn't have done it until it doesn't work? Or how do you know what worked and what didn't work unless you do it? This was, and I don't mean this as any disrespect to the Toronto Raptors, a glorified practice for the Celtics in that first quarter. This was an opportunity for the Celtics to say, okay, look at this. We've got this chance now. Everything's an opportunity for Joe Mazzulla. Okay, so we had no KP, no Luke, no Al. Are you going to start Kata? No, let's start Tory Craig. Let's start Jayson Tatum at center, even though Tory Craig is listed as the center. Let's start that lineup and get these guys to get some 14 minutes of game film. Let's get them together. Let's figure out these lineups with Tatum at the center. It's as much figuring that out as it is getting Tory Craig out there at a crash course. Hey, you're going to be playing with, look, Tatum, Brown, Derrick White, Sam Hauser. It's two All-NBA guys, borderline all-star, 40% three-point shooter, who's not a bad defender. Hauser's defense was actually pretty good for most of this game. This is a chance to get out there, hear the calls. It's a chance for Jayson Tatum to make those defensive calls on the back line. I didn't think he was really great in these minutes. They're going to need him to be great as a center from time to time. They're going to need him to figure this out. So they got good game film on Tatum at center and what he didn't do right. It's just another thing to help him grow in that role. Help Tory Craig grow in his role. So I consider those minutes with Tory Craig good, just in the fact that there's a ton of information packed into those 14 and a half minutes. So thank you, Raptors, for being, basically live scrimmage opponents. Now, it's still an NBA game, and they were trying to win. The Raptors were. The Celtics were trying to win this game. And so it wasn't 48 minutes of practice, but this was an incredible opportunity to put a lineup out there against a live opponent that's trying to, kill you and see what you can get. Very, very valuable stuff besides going out there and figuring out a way to win this game. I think this is a perfect use of Boston's depth. I'll tell you why when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood and Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. With the privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out sign up for the new Locked On Celtics daily newsletter Monday through Friday. You'll sign up at lockedondaily.com. Put in your email address after you click on the Locked On Celtics logo. Monday through Friday, you get an email from me with Celtics coverage plus Locked On NBA, NBA coverage, fantasy coverage from the Locked On Podcast Network. It's a nice email to get. It's a good email to get. So go check it out. Open it up, read it, get caught up on the podcast if you missed it. So check that out. I want to give Tom Westerholm credit here because I think he called this last week. We did our show last week about looking ahead to the rest of the 2025 regular season. And we were talking about these back-to-backs, these 3 games in 4 nights. And he made a great point about finding these different lineups that can help the Celtics. And I'm going to play you the clip from Tom Westerholm from last week because I think this is a good point.
That's the other thing that could make a big difference as the Celtics are pushing down the stretch is like, okay, can they start to come up with some of these lineups where you're like, like last year when it was like, okay, Tatum, maybe one other starter, and then 3 bench guys has a net rating of plus 147 or whatever, like these like lineups that are just absurdly dominant in small stretches. It's like, can you pick up some of those, see how those go in some of these bigger moments? If you can come up with some of those five-man groups that are really, really good, and that can give you a chance to kind of stagger your lineups a little bit over the course of games, some of these back-to-backs, some of these, 3 games in 4 nights might not be so damaging.
It's a great point by Tom. And I think it hits on why the Celtics are so championship ready. I think putting this group out there, saving Porzingis for this next game, understanding that, hey, they're not playing any bigs either. So let's take this opportunity where why play Porzingis in this game when you've got the Pistons, who are currently the 6th seed and have a pretty good grasp on the 6th seed. They've won 7 games in a row. They are figuring things out. That's going to be a tough game. Why not have both of your centers available? Let's dip into the depth. So it's not just Tory Craig. It's the Celtics going with giving Kata more time, which if he wasn't in foul trouble, he might have gotten. Dipping into Baylor Shireman, 10 and a half minutes, 5 minutes of Jordan Walsh, 4 minutes of JD Davison. All of those guys giving the Celtics some minutes. Let's see what can you put out there that can get the job done for long enough so Tatum and Jaylen and Derrick White and Payton Pritchard could do their thing, and these guys can play in their supporting role. I looked at this game as a potential, I don't know if letdown is the word, but I'm going to say letdown because you just beat the Knicks on ABC. You have this big game. Everybody's talking about how the Knicks can't touch Boston. You've got this Pistons game, which at first glance, when you first look at the schedule, like, okay, Toronto, Detroit's not that bad. But like I just said, Detroit's going to be a tough one. That's a legit tough game. Third game in 4 nights, back-to-back, on the road, difficult. And then off in the distance on Friday, you got a home game against Cleveland, which everybody's going to be looking forward to. That's a big game. That's going to be an important game. DeAndre Hunter, that's going to be, the Cavs are coming in saying, hey, we've retooled a little bit to compete with you directly. So let's, the Celtics are saying like, yeah, okay, maybe the Celtics are looking ahead to that, say, all right, well, let's see what you got. And maybe overlooking one of these games. I think this Toronto game was the one that you'd overlook because of tomorrow, how tough a game tomorrow is going to be, or tonight is going to be when you listen to this podcast. So I think, to Tom's point, this was a great opportunity to throw some different guys out there and make sure that the energy is right. Tatum, Jaylen, Derrick, even, maybe even Sam, but those guys who may be like, let's see if we can shoot our way to a win here. Well, you got Tory Craig out there now as your starter. You have to play hard. You have to play hard. You have to make sure that you're matching to the Toronto energy just out of respect for Tory Craig, because you're teaching him. You've got to make sure that you are engaged because you're teaching him. And you're putting Jayson as a center. You got to make sure that you're engaged because you're like, I've got to figure out how to play this position. You never know when you're going to need to play that position. Al Horford is old now. Porzingis is, always an injury risk. There's going to be a moment in the game potentially where Tatum's going to have to play some center somehow, some way. So all of these things make the Celtics engaged. When Tatum is out there with a lineup that includes JD Davison, Baylor Shireman, Nemish Queta, and Sam Hauser, that forces Tatum to be active and aware. And because if he's not at his best, all of those guys fail. You cannot count on any of those guys to create or do any of that stuff. I mean, I say that with JD Davison as a point guard, but at the NBA level, that is Tatum's job. So, yeah, this is a great way to use your depth and make sure that the Celtics are out there matching what was really, really intense energy from the Toronto Raptors. Look, the Raptors are not good, but they try hard. They are a try-hard team, and that's that. If the Celtics didn't match that, if the Celtics weren't there with the Raptors, Toronto could have won this game easily. They could have won this game. Their records are basically almost flipped. Boston's 42-16. Toronto is 18-40. But the Raptors are generally not a lay down and roll over kind of team. So the Celtics dipped into their depth. They got a lot of different players on the floor. They went 9 deep in the first quarter. And I think that was part of why they were able to play the way they did and put up 66 points in the first half and turn around and play the kind of defense they needed to play in the second half to win this game. So solid decision-making there. I think getting Holiday his rest, getting Horford his rest. Luke, I hope the personal reasons are good personal reasons. and then making that decision on the fly where if Porzingis wasn't feeling 100%, hey, let's shut him down and use him against the Pistons. That's good organizational decision making, and hopefully the Celtics are fully healthy or mostly fully healthy. I'm not sure about Jaylen Brown. I'll talk about Jaylen and that why he might not be and all of that stuff. Let's get into the individual performances that we saw in this game when I come back. Today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. Hey, get ready. If they swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. Whenever a player scores 50 during the rest of the regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Got to use the code NBA50. You'll get 50% off your order, up to $10 off that next day from noon to midnight. So you want to go grab lunch or have lunch brought to you the next day, you can do that with Dash Pass, and your favorite meals get delivered, 0 delivery fee, reduced service fees, and you can save more with this offer. Maybe this is a game day, a back-to-back, and you want to celebrate by ordering wings, pizza, or burgers. You can get that delivered straight to your door. Maybe you have a late night craving. This does go till midnight, so you can have that late night craving and satisfy that with Dash Pass and save a couple of bucks. You got to sign up for Dash Pass and get ready to save. Whenever any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Using that promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA Game Night is 7 days a week, covering every game in the association. I am there for you on Fridays with Jake Madison. And then in the middle of the day, you get a second podcast on the same feed, whether it's YouTube or the audio feed. You can go there and get 2 podcasts in one feed. So get the whole NBA covered in one shot. So let's get to some individual performances here. I'm going to start with Derrick White, who was just absolutely awesome in this game. He finished with 22 points on 7 of 15 shooting, 6 of 11 from 3, a couple of free throws on top of that, 5 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocked shots, just clutch all over the place. Derrick White was huge in this game. Just goes to show that Derrick might be the guy who sacrificed the most with this team. Continues to be the guy has sacrificed the most. He has taken such a backseat when you need him to step up. He's there. 25, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks. What a night for Derrick White. The 2 blocks were awesome, and part of building that lead back up in the second quarter. I think he had, was it the second quarter or maybe it was the third quarter that he had those 2 blocks. Yeah, it was the third quarter that he had those 2 blocks. So incredible defense, and then clutch shots, 2 clutch 3-pointers in the fourth quarter. Toronto never gave up. Toronto never rolled over, and they needed those 2 3-pointers. One of them came off of, this was the signature play of the game, with Payton Pritchard's offensive rebound and tip out, and Derrick White hits the 3 off of that. That I don't understand how Payton Pritchard got to that ball. I have no clue how he continues to get to that ball. He's probably the smallest guy on the court, and he continues to find. And this wasn't just like sneaking in back door, right? This wasn't even sneaking a corner crash where he snuck in behind everybody, and then as everybody's not looking at him, he just finds his way through a seam and snatches it. That's the typical play. They were actually trying to box him out. He was being held down on the baseline to the point where I'm like, they actually could have called a foul on that play, but he still reached up, tipped it, grabbed it, and got it back out. Incredible play by Payton Pritchard, who also chipped in with 20 points off the bench, 8 of 17 shooting, 4 of 13 from 3. Might have been a couple of shots that you want to get back there. He and Jayson Tatum took 25 of Boston's 51 3-pointers. Was not a great fan of how many 3-pointers that they took, considering they got to the rim at will. I feel like maybe the Jaylen Brown, I think he got like a knee to the thigh or something like that, because he asked out of the game in the third quarter, came back in the fourth, and then sat back down the final 3.5 minutes. I think that's all it was, and we'll see. It might keep him out of this Pistons game. I think, some kind of deep thigh bruise like that, just sit him down, let him kind of work that out, and get him ready for the Cavs game. Those hurt, and that's, you don't want to mess with that, because any sort of swelling, anything there, right around the knee area, you just don't want to tempt fate. The body's already kind of like working, and it's going to kind of like, I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's going to create some like swelling in that area. It's going to put pressure on the surrounding structure of the knee. You just don't want to mess with that. So anyway, Jaylen, I completely lost my train of thought there. But I guess what I'm saying there is, hopefully Jaylen's okay, but he had a pretty good game overall. 24 points, 10 of 18 shooting, 0 of 5 from 3. So Jaylen was able to get to the rim. Oh, this is where I left off. Jaylen was able to get to the rim at will. If he didn't get hurt, I think the Celtics might have backed off on some of those 3-pointers. So, but overall, Jaylen Brown did have a good game. Turnovers were not great. I didn't like the turnovers. Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown Tatum had 6, Brown had 3. They did get sloppy at the end. They tried to dribble too much. Again, I'm not going to go too crazy about this, because this was a game where, well, what did you want Tatum and Brown to do? They're trying to do too much, because you don't have Porzingis or Holiday, and yeah, you had Derrick White, but like, the defense can key in on these guys. It just makes it a little bit harder. So did the Celtics try to do too much? Yes. Did they settle for too many threes? Yes. I'm not going to go too crazy on what these guys did wrong in a situation where it's not your typical situation. I don't think they would have played like this had they been whole, right? So I didn't like the turnovers. I didn't like the zone defense that they played. Again, lineups that never play together, I don't expect you to be cohesive. But also the Celtics try zone a bunch. Not a bunch, but whenever they try zone, it's never really gone well. So I don't know. Somehow they're gonna have to figure that out. But D. White was awesome. Payton Pritchard was great too. 20 points, 7 rebounds, couple of assists, couple of steals for him. Sam Hauser was pretty good. Not only did he hit a couple of 3-pointers, 2 of 4 from 3, he got 5 rebounds, he had a steal, he had a block. I thought defensively, there were a couple points where, yeah, he got beat, but there were a couple points where he stayed right in front. That block shot was good. I thought he played pretty good defense. Who else? Jordan Walsh, Baylor Scheiman, JD Davison. Like, Walsh made some great plays. Scheiman hit this wild kind of like running across the lane shot, which was really cool. So those guys did what they had to do. Keita, the fouls bothered him. He had his moments, but if he wasn't in foul trouble, he might have had a better game. They could have used him a bit more. And Tory Craig's got a lot to learn. But hey, look, this was a great performance. I think Derrick White was the star of this show. Payton Pritchard did a lot of good things. Tatum, 19 points, 11 assists, 6 rebounds. Another 11 assists. What I say in the last podcast, or was the one before that? If you start right around here and move forward, I think this is where Tatum can start averaging a bunch of assists, like more than usual. Like I think he can get up to like 7-8 assists per game. And this is another example of that. 11 assists. And I thought Tatum was just okay. Like Tatum was just okay. And 19 points, 11 assists, and 6 rebounds. So figuring out a way to win is important. This is the Celtics. This is why they're championship material. They can go into Toronto, still an NBA team, and miss half their rotation and still find a way to win. The Detroit game is going to be interesting. I'm excited for that one. Can't wait to talk to you guys after that one. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. If you're not subscribed yet, please do subscribe. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into the comment section. Let me know what you think about this game, about what's coming up, about the Celtics' use of their depth and all of that stuff. Let me know in the comment section, and then share the podcast. Please tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.